and this is my third video in the Canada Reads 2015 selections. If you don't know, Canada Reads is a competition set up by the CBC where 5 well-known Canadians are given 5 books to defend, and the winning book will be the book that they think that all Canadians should read. And the theme for this year is a book to break barriers. Now, the book that I'm going to be talking about today is Rue by Thuy. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. So, basic summary. This is a series of very loosely connected vignettes about a girl who immigrated from Vietnam to Malaysia and then to Canada, all kind of during the Vietnam War. And most of the story actually concentrates on her family when she was a young girl in Vietnam. And there's bits here and there about her children and her life now in Quebec, and some of her about going back to Vietnam as an adult. But what takes up most of the pages is her reminiscing about her aunts and uncles. My thoughts on the book, the vignettes are, as I said, very loosely connected. They're either connected, say, by color or smell or a general theme. But what I think felt like happened is that we're reading someone's diary. It feels very kind of, not personal in that way, but kind of like they're writing down memories that they're having without embellishments. And I think what happened is that it's like someone's book of memories kind of fell, and then they just kind of gathered up the pages and just presented it like that instead of trying to put it into any sort of order or to make any kind of sense. So I really felt like there was no point to the book. That there was no plot, there was no character development. I mean, like, you hear about certain characters, but you're not, it's only very short. So I'll show you some, like, pages. So some pages, like, this is a whole chapter, a whole scene. And then, like, the longest one is maybe, like, a page and a half. The shortest ones, you know, sometimes like that. So I really was kind of disappointed with how that was put together. And the writing style is okay. I found that what I really did not like is that she made some kind of broad generalizations, which I never really like about anything, which is a broad generalization, I guess. But she also kind of tells us how to feel about certain things, even if you kind of disagree with her interpretation of the events. And I'm disappointed with this aspect because in some areas she remains really aloof, kind of objective, and in some cases she's really, really opinionated. For example, with the issues regarding feminism in Vietnam, she talks really objectively about the rape of her mentally challenged aunt, and just kind of glosses over it, but she really dedicates a lot of thought on prostitutes who are getting money that's kind of wadded up really tight and thrown at them. And she really talks about that subjectively and gives a lot of opinions about it. And I really don't think, this sounds like a memoir, but it's what, the fictional autobiography type thing. It's kind of based on true stories, but there's a lot of fiction in it. And I think if you're going to call your book fiction, that the author really has no place to tell the reader how to feel about certain events, and how to interpret your writing. I just think that has no place in fiction. So I really thought there's no consistency, and there are points where it seems really deep, but it seems rather amateur and that she's trying too hard. Like, it seems like just like kind of like platitudes that don't really have any substance behind them, even though they sound kind of nice. So is this a book to break barriers? I decided no. I see the immigrant experience in here a little, but I said the majority of the story is talking her about being a rich kid back in Vietnam and how her uncle was kind of a pervert and how her aunt was raped. you know, how she was rich and they hid diamonds and gold and all this stuff, as opposed to really any experiences that she had in Canada as a new immigrant. I mean, she touches on it briefly, and she touches very briefly on her current living situation in Vietnam, but these are too few and far between, I think, to make really any impact. I really don't think there's nothing provocative about this book. There's the potential there. And I think it would have been better if she cared to develop those thoughts a bit more instead of telling us how to feel about events, and told us more about events and kind of included symbolism instead of, you know, here's how you're supposed to feel. There's nothing provocative I found about this book, although there is the potential there for breaking those barriers and adding that provocativeness. If she cared to develop them a little further, if she cared to, instead of telling us how to feel about things, if she told us more about the events, and about the consequences of those events, and included maybe symbols instead of very straightforwardly telling you what to think about certain things or asking questions about certain things that really should just kind of come naturally to reading instead of being explicitly stated by the author. So I think this book should not win Canada Reads this year. Hey, you might want to check out Pickle's Instagram, Twitter, Goodreads, and other social media links in the description bar underneath.